We're talking with State Senator Tim Bivins, and Senator, lots of discussions during the week as it wraps up on March 17 about the budget. Everyone is aware of the ongoing impasse over a complete and constitutional budget from last year, and there's new discussions about spending for the coming fiscal year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, in the last 24 hours, there's been appropriation bills at the Capitol here to the tune of about $4.8 billion. Now, the 3.8 covers that 10% not court-ordered and consent decree, and everybody gets that they want to fund these agencies, but it adds more spending when we don't have the revenues at all. And the problem is, even if a budget is agreed upon, even if there's a tax increase agreed upon, there's still going to be a shortfall. We have $7 billion to $8 billion in a backlog of bills growing every day, and yet we come in with more spending. And in addition to the fact that we have all these appropriation bills in the last 24 hours, we have, over the next 3 years, there's legislation in this building that appropriates another $5.6 billion in the next 3 years. Money we don't have. So apparently no one got the memo on the constitutionality of spending more than you're taking in. The Constitution says your budget, your expenditures, and your revenues have to meet each other. That hasn't happened in years, and that's why we're having this discussion today, and why we have the problem today, and why agencies are closing and laying off people today, because we've overspent the budget for years. But yet, in the midst of all this, here we come with legislators coming into committees, making new proposals for new programs. There was another new program for about $4 or $5 million that gave money to those who are victims of human trafficking. And while that's a terrible thing to have happen, especially to a child, and we had compelling testimony from an individual, and you can't help but your heart goes out to these individuals. But at the same time, it's a new program with new spending that could potentially grow from 4 or 5 million to up to 75 million. With the number of people that we believe that are out there that end up taking advantage of this program. So it's just a continuation of what we've seen, and it's just mind-boggling to watch this unfold, and at a time when we're so far in arrears on who we can pay in the state, and then to have people come in and submit legislation, and just a few minutes ago passed an appropriation bill for $3.8 billion spending that we don't have the money. A couple weeks ago, it was the MAP grants. Everybody would like to help out the college kids with the grants and help the colleges, but at the same time, it was a day they appropriated $721 million on a day that we only had about $69 million in the coffers. The math just doesn't work, and so I don't know what it's going to take. Hopefully a revolution by the voters out there, that they finally have had enough and said, quit wasting our money, quit trying to spend more than you're taking in. But it has to stop.
Quite often you talked about a number of these new spending proposals, and you threw out a few billion here and a few billion there and a few million here and a few million there. Do you think the average person maybe understands $1 million or even $1 billion?
I think the average person, the people I talk to in my district, they know that $1 million is a lot of money. They know that $100,000 is a lot of money. They know that $10,000 is a lot of money. I don't think any of us can wrap our head around $1 billion. And then if you move it up to the federal level, when they're talking trillions, and they just say it, it just flows out of their mouth like butter. That there's no end to the money that we receive. It's just everybody talks about revenue stream. I've yet to see a stream that's had money flowing in it.
Well, so maybe in light of these ongoing budget negotiations, where you have the Democrat majority legislature on one side and you have the Republican governor on the other side, it doesn't seem to be any policy shift from the legislature over the previous 12 or 13 years. So care to guess, where do we go from here, since there's a few months left in the spring session and There's one budget that's not settled and another budget that has to be settled.
Well, you know, the governor in his budget address made a proposal. He told the General Assembly, he said, there's two options here. Either you give me authority to cut, balance the budget, and make constitutional, or you submit a budget. Everything's on the table but education. We'll talk about anything. Everything's negotiable. And just bring me something, but bring it quickly. And the Speaker Madigan's response to that was to take a month off, you know, to adjourn the House. The Senate's still in session, but the House was adjourned until the beginning of April. So it's hard to negotiate when someone's not here. So, you know, I think where it goes is anybody's guess right now. You know, there's a lot of undercurrent about it could go till after the November election. We don't know. But, you know, we need a budget because under court orders, that forces the state to spend more than we take in. So we've got to get away from that, and we have to have a budget. But what people don't realize, even with new revenue, which is basically it's a tax increase or fee increase, you have to increase those. Even with that new revenue, there's still going to be cuts because you can't make up the difference. You can't pay the backlog of bills of almost $8 billion. You can't close that gap of $6 billion and growing with a tax increase. There's still going to have to be cuts. So I think a lot of people will be shocked if there is a tax increase, but yet there's still cuts. I don't think people understand that, and they need to be aware of that because we've come to the point in time that I've been predicting for, you know, the 8 years I've been down here that we're coming to a day of disaster, and I think we're here. It's just you can't keep overspending, and then in the midst of overspending, spend even more that has been proposed in the last 24 hours. It doesn't work.